Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Modern Handgunners. I'm Bob Main from the Handgun World Podcast, and with me is...
Ben Branham, as always, from Modern Self-Protection.
We appreciate you tuning into the Modern Handgunners channel here, and we're going to talk about some dry fire practice, aren't we?
Yep, and you can see I have my big Smith & Wesson revolver out, the 357, and it's empty. Of course it's empty because, and this is the only time you can look down at the barrel of a gun safely, is when you watch our video. Other than that,
and I got my Glock 48, and I got an empty magazine, and I got an empty pistol.
So yeah, and the other one I got sitting here is my Glock 19 that I might use, but I brought the Smith & Wesson out because it's easier to see that it's unloaded, and I'm carrying a 9mm for self-defense on me, and so the ammo cannot fit in my Smith & Wesson in any way. I could not have an accidental discharge. So, you know, that kind of stuff is great. So I guess we're going to talk about dry fire. We should start right there, the safety stuff of it. Bob, I know you did it before we started the video. You took all the ammo out of the gun and you put it way behind you, out of your reach, out of your place. I actually like to leave ammo out of the room. I will go into one room, unload my gun, and then go into another room to do my dry fire practice. And whatever
That's a
room
good
it is.
way.
So I generally unload my gun in front of my safe is my unload show clear kind of place. And then I will leave all the ammo on my bed. Yeah, I know it's weird, but I leave all the ammo on my bed because it's just what I've come out with habit. And then I will walk out of the room and I will go to wherever I'm going to dry fire, and then I will clear the gun and clear my mag pouches again. One of the things I want to caution you guys about on mag pouches, if you're going to practice reloads and stuff, is that Marines found this out a long time ago, that when you put those magazines upside down, you know, bullets down in your pouch like you're supposed to, and they rattle around, sometimes a round pops off out of there, especially if you're running an AR with soft pouches. Sometimes the top round will pop off and sit on the bottom of the magazine. Well, if you cram that magazine down hard enough, you can pick up that round into that magazine and then insert it in your gun. So I've always been super paranoid. If I'm doing mag reloads and I'm doing mag pouches, I will take out all the magazines, make sure they're empty, and I will put my fingers inside all the magazine pouches to make sure there's not a round there. Honestly, I haven't had that happen with a handgun yet, but I have seen it happen with a rifle. So yeah, an AR style rifle, M16. How's that? But I am super paranoid when it comes to that because, Bob, as you say in your show, the loudest sound you ever heard in a gunfight is a click when you're expecting a bang, or a bang it when you're expecting a click. We do not want that to happen ever under
You don't want either one of those.
So be paranoid about your self-defense, and remember, it's not you. You're going to be embarrassed and it's going to suck, but it's going to be somebody else that you hurt, and it could be a family member. So imagine living with that. So don't do that. Be paranoid about your safety when you do this stuff. Now that safety's out of the way,
dry fire practice is about safety. Yes. Okay, so I'll tell you the first thing that I like to dry fire practice once I've made everything safe. I like to, and I can just sit right here in my office like I'm doing it now. I can sit anywhere I want or stand anywhere where I want. The trigger press. It's so easy to just be able to gently press the trigger. And again, we have empty guns and we're sitting in front of computers, not in front of each other. But the trigger press. The thing I do is I like to point the gun at a white wall, pretty much, because my sights on this pistol, at least, and most of my sights, are black. So when I point at a white or a light colored wall, I can see my black sights nicely. And the whole goal is, if I have to sit here 150 times and do this, press the trigger without the sights moving. If I can do that, if I can press the trigger without the sights moving, I'm happy. There are different devices out there that are training devices that'll throw a nice red dot on your wall, and you can actually see that dot bouncing as you're pressing the trigger. If you can get one of those devices, it's good. But right now, I don't want to spend the money on that, so I just concentrate on making sure the front sight does not move when I press that trigger. Easy dry fire practice to do.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite drills, is to do it against a wall, a blank wall. If you do it against something, then you can see if your sights are aligned on that target or not, and you're concentrating on that. What I want to concentrate when I'm doing that, and I call it a wall drill. Imagine that. It's a super cool name I came up with. But when I'm doing the wall drill, I'm going to point the gun straight at the camera. You can see it's unloaded. But When I do that and if I look at those sights right at the camera, you could probably see that. I want that front sight not to move and come straight back and then not move when the gun goes click. I don't want to see this and then that when the gun moves. And I hope that came out in the camera. And that's what you're looking for. That's why you're not looking at a target. You're looking at just your white builder white wall is like the best for this. And you can see that front sight when it goes click and we were pressing the trigger, you'll see that thing move. And if it goes click and goes like that, you're doing it wrong. You need to put more finger on the trigger. You need to change your grip. You need to change what you're doing. You need to press the trigger more slowly.
Slowlier. That's a new word.
Slowlier. You need to press the trigger slower and figure out what's wrong. Because a lot of the times when we go fast in the trigger, and that's what I tell students when they're shooting nice groups, is press the trigger slower. When they go fast, they get the gun up there, and then you can see the gun move as the trigger is going back really fast. If you go slow, you can keep that from happening. So that's where that wall drill, that is where you learn how to do a perfect trigger press.
And I'd like to add something to your wall drill. If you can pick something out, if you can pick a spot on the wall, if there's something on the wall that is small enough, and then just try to put that front sight right on that spot, press your trigger, and don't let that front sight move off of that spot. And you can do that many, many, many times with anything, revolver or semi-auto.
I think the spot is the advanced drill there, is you add that spot to it. But if you just learn that perfect trigger press first before you worry about sight alignment or sight picture, really sight alignment you want to keep because you can see it in between. Sight alignment is the way your sights are aligned to each other. The rear sight notch to the front sight. Your sight picture is how that orientates onto a target. So if I can get rid of one of those things and just concentrate nothing else but the trigger press, I like to do that. I like to cut out all the background noise I possibly can and concentrate on the trigger press and the trigger feel.
Yeah.
How I can feel the difference in when I was running different Glocks. You feel the difference in my trigger presses, even though they hand me a Glock. And once you start getting really in tune to it, you'll be able to feel different. If you take two Glocks off of the line with a sequential serial number and start shooting them, you'll be able to feel the difference from one to the other. And honestly, when you have a good gun, and Glock's a pretty good gun for this, eventually they will break in. Bob, you love the 1,000-round trigger job on your show, which is, yeah, I wish I knew, I can only quote that to you because it's one of the most genius things I've ever heard of in my life. Take that gun out there and train and practice with it for 1,000 rounds before you alter or do anything to it. So yeah, the Smith & Wesson I'm playing with right now probably has a couple hundred rounds through it, probably a couple thousand trigger presses to it, dry fire, and it's completely bone stock. I actually ran it out of oil so much because I didn't oil it up. I got all excited, got it. I had to order it and I got it, and I started shooting it, and I let it bone stock, and then the trigger stopped working. Really, it was like couldn't figure out what it was. Broke it up. I looked at it and I spun the cylinder, and I'm like, oh, this cylinder thing doesn't turn when I spin it. So that's probably my trigger press problem. But get out there and run your guns and do this dry practice, and you will feel the trigger. And then, man, good Smith & Wesson is notorious for this. You want to get a Smith & Wesson trigger job and a revolver? You know how you do a trigger job on a Smith & Wesson revolver?
Oh.
You do that about 10,000 times on the gun, and it will smooth in beautifully. But same thing for the Glocks. The Glocks will get to the point where they wear out. I think it's just anecdotally, the one that I wore out at about 30,000 rounds, and I probably have 10. My guess is I press the trigger 10 times in dry fire practice for every time I do live fire. So you can see about 300,000 trigger presses, you're going to have to replace the Glock trigger parts.
Okay, so now let's...
Don't think you're going to get there fast, because that was 5 years of shooting a lot for me, and some of it was government-free ammo that I got. So, it takes a long time. That's not something you do tomorrow. Even if you sat there all day, every day, and did it while you were quarantined, you still probably wouldn't get to 300,000 trigger presses, because I do 10 or 20 on my dry practice every day, and I get tired. So I'm looking... Right now, I think I'm doing 30 to 50 dry practice trigger presses on whatever I'm doing every day on whatever weapon I'm using too, because I've been using different weapon systems. I'm using my M&P that I carry every day. I'm into the PPC game really a lot, so I've been working with my PPC a lot. And then because of life going on, I pulled out the battle rifle, my 5.56 AR that's my go-to self-defense weapon for any situation. And I worked with that yesterday just because, well, the world is a weird place right now, so I'm going to get that thing out and I'm going to work it a little bit. So I am top of my game if anything happens. I don't
Good.
expect anything to happen here in Texas, but hey, that's
You
why we
never know.
practice. The other
That's
thing,
why we practice. I think you meant to say PCC, pistol caliber carbine.
yes, I
So
said PPC,
anyway,
huh?
that's okay. That's
Because
okay. That's
PPC
okay.
was a game for pistol
It was
shooters.
a
It was
game. Yes, it
around
was.
practical pistol competition. That wasn't
It
practical, but it
was.
was around forever. So I get
Okay, the
mixed
other
up.
dry fire practice technique that I want to discuss, grip. Grip. Now, we have a lot of new gun owners, and Ben, I want you to talk about how you like to grip, but I want to share mine. We have a lot of new gun owners right now, and trigger press and grip, I want to say, are probably the two most important things. This is what I see with a lot of new gun owners, and here's one of the problems right here. Can you see that? Just get like that. The teacup saucer grip. I see a lot of people, new gun owners at the range, going like this, and they're blasting away like this. Now, please don't do that, folks, because first thing that you're doing is you're creating a nice rocking point right there for your pistol under recoil. So you're actually probably going to be causing that thing to recoil, right, Ben?
Yes, don't do that. That sucks.
Don't do that. That's that sucks. So one of the most important things in the grip is, first of all, we like to call this the tang or the backstrap. Get your shooting hand as high up on that as you can. Don't worry, the pistol's not going to hurt you. Probably not going to hurt you, okay? Get it up high. I see a lot of people gripping their gun like that. Okay? They got, look at all this space right here between my hand and the top of the gun. They're gripping it like this. Well, guess what you're doing when you grip it like that? When you grip it low, you're also causing this. Okay? So get that up high. You can get a lot of control up high like this. Then the other key, and then Ben, I want you to weigh in. I like to take my weak hand or other shooting hand, which we'll maybe get into that later, and I like to get as much on the grip as I can, actually a little bit even back here. But I like to get that hand on there too and make like I'm just squeezing the crap out of the gun. Like I want to choke this gun to death. That's how I like to grip, because I can control it better. So take a look at that grip. I use thumbs forward. Some people like to go, like this or like this, whatever. But get a nice firm grip on that. What do you think?
Honestly, so you're really traditional on your thoughts on grip and stuff. I am new age on the grip. I really don't care what your grip is. It's not going to help you hit the target. Your grip will help you control the pistol during recoil so that you can shoot better, faster.
Just hit the target.
So yeah, I can hold the
But
gun,
this,
but
or
I can
this
hold
garbage.
but I can hold the gun like this and have the crappiest grip in the world and go like this and sit here and still get a perfect trigger press
But that's because
and still get.
you're very well trained.
But then
You're very well
I
trained.
can get one shot and it will be perfect. But after that shot, the gun's going to go like this and it's going to move around in my hand and I'm going to get inconsistencies with it. And so being consistent is what matters for accuracy. Getting as much meat on the gun and behind the gun is what matters for recoil management. And
Okay.
so I say meat behind the gun. Bob, you got the perfect grip with your right hand where the gun comes down right here and lines up. So I want the gun to come straight down my hand and straight down my arm so I can get as much meat behind the gun as possible. And then I want as much meat on the gun so you got your hand all the way up so it crushes against that tang and that backstrap. And then you have that high thumb in there to see all this area. That's where my left hand is going to go. And then my left hand goes there and puts as much meat on the gun as possible. So I get as much friction on the gun as possible. And then my hand just matches the other hand and wraps over it. I like the thumbs forward grip because, again, I got more meat on the gun. And then the last thing I say about you got a lot of meat on the gun, thumbs up. Thumbs up is meat on the slide is not a good idea. It slows down the speed of your slide and could cause malfunction. The other thing is when you put your wrist forward, let's see if I can get this on camera, it locks your wrist in. All this bone structure gets put together so recoil comes straight back your arm instead of if I push my thumb up, see how my wrist goes up and you can see this pivot point in my hand And that becomes a
Hmm.
point that's a hinge for the gun to recoil at and the energy to be absorbed at. You think that's a good idea, but not, because the gun goes up and then comes back down. Not super important points to me. I mean, when we teach classes, I generally skip over a grip a lot. I'm just like, grip the crap out of the gun, squeeze it nice and tight, and do it the same way every time. And then press the trigger. Well, if you press the
Well,
trigger, you get a hit. When you
and I
get the
like what
good
you
grip,
say.
go
I
faster.
agree. I agree. Grip that gun hard. Don't be afraid of it. Some people I see new shooters, they act like they're afraid to, like they're gonna hurt the gun or something by gripping it. You're not gonna hurt your gun. Trust me. Your gun is not a delicate little thing. Just get a good solid grip on that thing.
And you might, but so when I went from a Glock Gen 3 to the Gen 4, and I was running them all the time, I would grip the crap out of the gun. The Gen 3 was just fine. The Gen 4, I could feel the whole frame. If I didn't have a magazine in there, when I gripped the crap out of it, I could feel the frame bending, and I could squeeze it together. But I gripped that gun the whole time like that, and shooting it never had a problem. The Gen
They fixed
5,
that on the Gen 5.
the Gen 5 is a little different, so I can't, this side doesn't crush in when I grip the gun, but I have the back strap on here, and when I press the gun hard enough, I can feel that back strap give in a little bit, and that's about how hard I'm gripping the gun when I'm shooting it. I don't quite crush that background where the gun shakes and goes away, but I mean, there's great instructors like Masada Ayub. He says grip it as hard as you possibly can.
Crushed grip.
If the gun is shaking, you're gripping it hard enough. For me, that gets really tiring after a long thing, and I don't after a long day of training, and then I'm not consistent with what I do, and I want to be consistent over that. And then, but the other problem is, if you think about it in a self-defense situation, man, you are going to grip that tool that's going to save
Yes.
your life with every ounce of everything you've got.
You're gonna
So
give it everything you got.
being able to grip the crap out of your gun and still shoot is a great thing, because that's what might happen when you're actually in a self-defense situation. So I can do it both ways. For me, I'm like, when you're up close, just grip it and rip it is what I tell people. Under 5 yards, over the hood of your car distance, think about that. Just grip the crap out of the gun, point it at the bad guy, and let her rip. Once you get past that car length distance, you got to be a little bit more subtle on things so you can actually make a hit. And hits count. Noise doesn't always count. Hits always count. So make a hit.
Hits always
So
count.
that's a little bit
Yes.
of fighting inside of our thing. But that's how I build my grip, and that's what I'm thinking about. So when I'm actually putting together a class on um, dry fire right now. The first day is just trigger press. I don't care about the grip. It's just learn that trigger press.
Nice and smooth.
Yep, and there's a couple aspects of the trigger that you got to learn. The first one we talked about doing the wall drill. The other one is that reset. And so you can either shoot off a reset, so when the gun reset, you pull the trigger, you hold the trigger back, and when you reset the gun, you can let it out. And Glock is famous for saying, look, you can hear it click, right? You probably hear that in the video, and that's the reset point. I didn't have to come all the way out. If you look at the video, I can go a little farther. I don't have to go all the way. This is all slop in the trigger. You talk about trigger slop or pre-travel. I call it slop, but it's pre-travel. Every gun has it. Glock has a bunch of it. This is not
A
doing
lot of it.
anything. But you don't
Yeah.
have to do that after you shoot the gun once. You only have to go halfway out and then back into it. So a lot of cool stuff about that, and a lot of technical terms, but it doesn't matter. The one thing you don't want to do when you're shooting is to fire the gun and take your finger off the trigger.
Yes.
And I just taught a student a couple weeks ago that was doing it. He would go like, I go, okay, fire a round, and he'd go, and the gun would recoil, and I look over and his finger is back up here on index, and I'm like, no, dude, that's a bad habit. So you want to,
Well, it's okay when you're finished shooting.
when you're finished
When you're
shooting,
done shooting,
that's where your
then
finger
get your
goes.
finger back up here. But
But
not while you're shooting. Yes, doing this while you're shooting is a bad idea.
but I would tell him to fire 4 rounds, and he'd go bang, 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 bang. And I was like, wait a second, no. So really, on your reset, I don't care if you go to reset or if you go to just all the way out. You want to have your finger not lose index on that trigger. You want that trigger
Don't take it
finger,
off the trigger
yeah,
until you're done shooting.
touching the trigger when you're shooting all the time. And once you're done shooting, finger straighten off the trigger, then you should be able to see daylight through there. If you don't see daylight, you're not doing it correctly. This is not correct, finger off the trigger. If you come to one of my classes, I will hit you for this. No, I'm not going to hit you. I will remind you that that is incorrect because of startle response. And I'll tell you this right now, we're going to go a little safety here. If you put your finger like this and I do a startle response, no matter what I do, my finger doesn't go on that trigger and doesn't pull the trigger. If I go like this, straighten off the trigger, and I go startle response, you can see where my finger goes. You know, it's not pulling it. Oh, that time it pulled the trigger. So twice it didn't, and once it did. Do you want a 33% chance of you having an accidental discharge if somebody scares you? Not a good idea. So finger straighten off the trigger up here. But that's what
on the slide. It's okay to put your finger on the slide when you're done shooting.
Yeah, put it up there. It's not going to get that hot. It's not going to get hot enough to burn
No,
you. You might feel the heat, but yeah,
it's not.
unless you do a 1,000 round mag dump, then it'll get too hot for you to hold. But other than that, you know, it's not what as the amount of ammo that you could carry on your body. The gun is never going to get too hot to touch. So I am good
Yeah.
with that one.
So, so would you say, Ben, that trigger press and grip in dry fire practice probably the two most important things you can do?
Uh, I don't know. So you can really learn your trigger press. It is the place that you can learn trigger press above all else is dry fire practice, and that's where you can practice your perfect trigger press. We all pick up bad habits shooting, like the anticipation when you shoot. You go if your rounds are going low left, I guarantee it's not the gun. It's you anticipating the recoil. If you're a
You're going
right-hander,
like that.
if you're a left-hander and they're going low and right, it's because you're anticipating the recoil, which means you're trying to hold the gun down faster than the gun is recoiling. So we can all break those habits by going back to the dry fire, and so you can learn the trigger press. Um, to
Yeah.
me, the grip is all theory until you get out there and you see the gun move, and it's
Okay.
still all theory until you get good enough where you can track your sights. So on some of the guns, I can track my sights. The slide is moving slow enough, I can actually see the sight moving back and forth on top of the gun. And when you get that good, then your grip is no longer theory because you can test out your grip and see how well your sights track back and forth and up and down. Until then, we're just all in the theory, and you've got to trust people that can do that, like me and Bob, that, hey, this is your best option. And it takes probably 10,000 rounds of actually shooting and training until you can start seeing those sights cycle back and forth. And there are guns that I can't see the gun. My old 45, that thing chugged along. I loved it because I could watch those sights go whoa, 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 whoa every time. It was awesome. Glock was a little bit harder. It took me a little bit more time, especially with the 19 because it's so jumpy and snappy. With the 34, that sight cycles slower. I can see the sights no problem. With my M&P, it cycles. I can see the sights. I shot somebody's FN 5.7. Oh my gosh, does that slide cycle so fast? I can't believe it.
Flat. Yes, that's
But
a
I can't
flat
track the
gun
sights.
too.
All I see is the sight jump. It just like moves.
Yep.
Like I could see it jump from one place to the other, and that's it when I fire the gun. And I cannot see that thing. I was trying to look at them
I
to see it
shot one of
cycle,
those ones
and
too. They're great to shoot.
I could
They're
not see
great
that
to
thing
shoot.
cycle. I could not believe how fast that.
Yeah.
It was just. I was like, oh my god. My first impression is this side cycles so
Yeah.
fast. But so you get to that point. So I say your grip is all theory until you get to that point in your shooting career
Okay.
where you can do it. And until then, believe the guys that are telling you that they've tried a bunch of things. Bob, you've been to 10, 20,000 classes by now, and everybody has a different grip, right? I've been to 5 or 6 different classes that give me a different grip, from thumbs forward to thumbs up to Weaver to isosceles, all of that stuff. I've tried it all, and I've come down to isosceles. Thumbs forward is your best grip, and put as much meat on the gun as you can, and that will get you the
Okay.
best recoil management. So that's why I say it's
So what
all
I think you
theory
meant to
until.
say is that I've shot about 10 to 20,000 rounds in classes.
Oh, yeah,
I
probably.
didn't go to 10,000 classes, but anyway.
I don't know. You're probably coming up
Yeah.
on at least 1,000 hours of training. It's
Pretty close. No. I think I was going to say maybe 600 or 700 hours of actual training as a student, and then probably another 500 or 600 as an instructor.
yeah. So I probably got double that, but I've been doing this double the time you have. I started when I was
Yep.
in high school following this stuff. So yeah, but it was
Okay.
cool. It was the late 90s when I started learning, and the Chapman grip was still around, and the
Yeah.
isosceles
Weaver.
a Weaver ruled the day
Yeah.
right then, and it was something new that was just hitting law enforcement, and it was the new fighting style is to shoot the Weaver grip, and I did that for a long time, and I actually turned to the isosceles out of necessity when I was an armored car guard and I was wearing body armor, and the body armor I wore would not allow me to get in that perfect Weaver grip, and Weaver is
Yeah.
with elbows down and stuff, one out, one back, and
That
then
was an issue, wasn't it?
yeah, but when I got into that isosceles grip, with my shoulders forward and the arms straight and the elbows out, I was like, hey, look at this. My body
Yeah.
armor and my plates don't stop me from getting in a good shooting position. So I went from a Weaver grip to isosceles, and I think I went to the isosceles before it was cool too, because that was the early 2000s when people were still like, oh, you put two hands on the gun. That's amazing. It's
And
come
we're
a
going to
long
do
way.
another video coming up. We're going to do another dry fire video, and let's talk about these different types of stances.
Okay.
Isosceles, Weaver, Chapman. Some people don't know what we're talking about, so that's a good subject for video number 2. What do you think?
Yep, and I'll try to put a link to an article I did on it, and I gave good pictures of it.
Ah, there you go. Okay,
So
so
we'll try to do
everybody,
that.
at the bottom of this video, there's going to be a lot of links in there for our podcasts. And the other thing I want to mention is we have a very good video school. You and I do. We have a video shooting school. It's called the Shooters Club. And if you want more good videos like this, where we actually teach you how to shoot better, consider joining our Shooters Club. It's only $8 a month, or you can save a little bit of money and sign up for $75 a year, and you have access to over 80 videos that you and I do, right, Ben?
Yep, and it goes all the way from easy dry fire practice like this, and everything I produce is going up there. I'm actually working on this dry fire class I'm going to put up there. I'm working on a book that I'm going to put up there. Everything that I produce will go in there, but it'll be sold separately too, so you can buy it separate or it'll be up there. But the easiest way, cheapest way for you to get it is to join the Shooters Club.
Join the Shooters Club. Yep. And in the links at the bottom of this video, shootersclubmembers.com, there'll be a link there. Really easy sign up. So, a good video on dry fire practice, Ben.
Cool. Well,
What else? What's the last thing you want to leave people
I was
with?
going to say, closing, let me mention some of the things that you can actually dry fire practice. So we just mentioned learning sights and trigger, but
Right.
you can learn how to draw. You can learn how to draw from weird positions. How about where it's comfortable laying on your living room floor and figuring out how to draw the gun from there without pointing it at yourself or somebody else?
Aha. Yeah.
From where we are right now, we're sitting in chairs. How about doing that? How about if you were standing in a crowd? How about if you were on your knees? How about if you're on your belly, your back, your side? Um, Anything you can think of, you're sucked deep in your couch because I have this nice new lounge couch that I love. How do you get your gun from there? And you can do all that with your
Good
dry
point.
fire. And then you can do all your gun manipulations, your malfunction drills, your reloads, your loading, unloading procedures, everything, all of that can be done dry fire.
Just please, please, please double and triple check to make sure your firearm is not loaded. In the next video, let's talk about how to double and triple check and make sure when you dry fire practice that your pistol's unloaded.
Yep, and if you don't know, go to a couple YouTube videos and try them all until you find the one that works.
Until you find the one that works. All right, Ben, thanks a lot. This was good. This was good. And folks, thanks for tuning in to Modern Handgunners.
Until next time, Modern Handgunners out.